Hey everybody, welcome back to Duke Nukem. This is the second level. I don't know what it's called because I didn't pay attention to the screen that just passed. But if this footage looks familiar, it's because I talked a little over the first level in the first video, and I did the two levels like in one shot. And then I figured I'd just talk over them, and then I could somehow stop myself talking by the time the first one was over. But I don't know. I'm a bit of a chatterbox, so yeah, that I should have known that that wasn't gonna work. Um, but I didn't get too far last time, so I figured I'd just start from the beginning of the level for the sake of continuity. But in this video, I wanted to talk about something that I've been struggling with lately, um, that I haven't really ever seen articulated elsewhere, and that I don't know, I don't often have a lot of people to relate to about. And I'm sorry, this is going to be somewhat of a long video, because I got lost a lot of times in this level, and I was wandering around a lot, and I cut out parts where I was just like, when I just paused to like search for a walkthrough. Um, but it's still quite long, so I'm sorry about that. But yeah, uh, so I have this thing, and maybe other people could relate to this, where when I'm emotional, um, and it's provoked by something in particular, it's some problem I'm having, or it's something in my mind. I like to search it up on YouTube, not on YouTube, sorry, on Google, to to see if there's any writings on the internet, or anything on Reddit or anything, or just anything anywhere, any blog posts or any forum posts of anybody sort of talking about having a similar experience. Almost as if I'm having like a computer problem, but instead of a computer problem, it's an emotional problem. And so, for example, let's say let's say let's say I'm feeling anxious about, let's say, going to work makes me want to die, which it doesn't all the time. It doesn't even do it regularly enough for me to search that up. But let's say I was feeling that today, and I was feeling it really hard. I would probably search up on Google. Going to work makes me want to die, and I'd read related things, related searches, and I guess sort of in an attempt to seek some sort of solace, because there's always the old adage that misery loves company, and yeah, it's often that phrase is often said in sort of a negative way. I guess it carries a negative connotation, but I think it's just something inherent about humanity, you know, and it's not even necessarily always a bad thing. When we suffer, we find solace in being able to find somebody that can empathize with that, or at least somebody that can be there with us. But it's especially gratifying for us to have our struggles articulated in somebody else. And I feel exactly that way. I try to prevent myself from wallowing in things, but I do wallow. I try to rein in my wallowing. That's the thing. But I really allow myself to wallow in. Anytime I feel any emotion, I try to just sort of feel it to its fullest extent, to its fullest realization. But something I've been struggling a lot lately, where I search it up, I just can't find anything at all, is sort of um, uh, issues of female vanity and self-worth from a male perspective. And what I mean is things like body image, sort of uh, negative feelings around sex and relationships, things like this. And I often feel very, I don't know, very alone, or very, I'm not sure, odd for having these problems, because it seems like men don't really have them, or if they do have problems like this, they have it for different reasons than women do. And so, for example, one main thing is that in the past year or so, I've struggled a lot with disordered eating. Um, and this is very common in men. But I feel like for me, it sort of came, or at least it might have came about in the same way that it came for a lot of men. But it's for me, it's ultimately its ultimate motivation, it seems to be different from what a lot of from what it is for a lot of men, you know, because I have, for me, it's wanting to be thin. And I guess the best place to start is the beginning. And so for me, my disordered eating started from a place that it starts at very commonly for men. And in all of my research and all my reading, it seems more often than not that disordered eating, and for women, often tends to sort of start from an unhealthy place. You know, and I'm not saying it doesn't for men, but it starts from an unhealthy place subconsciously for men. Whereas for women, it can often be externally negative from the beginning. And I died there, and yeah, that's embarrassing. But for women, it can often be negative from externally from the beginning, like I said, in the sense that they, from the outset, perhaps want to be thin by, restrictive eating, or maybe they read about bulimia, and they don't have an eating disorder, and they're like, oh well, maybe I could try that, and then that's how things tend to spiral out of control for women. But for men, it tends to begin with genuinely good intentions, maybe, or at least the idea that they're doing things in a healthy way through exercise, or quote unquote clean eating, or things like this. And around this time last year, a little earlier, at the beginning of 2020, really, I started I started exercising very seriously, and I started being, I don't know, and initially it was just in my weight training class in high school. But once the quarantine started, in like the first, I don't know, I guess the second week of March, I continued working out at home, and that for me is when it got really unhealthy. I think it would have gotten really unhealthy anyway, but because I'd work out a lot. I'd be very controlling of the things that I ate when I really didn't need to be. And mind you, I'm a thin person. I'm naturally thin. I've been thin my entire life. I mean, I was a bit chunkier as a kid, but everybody's chunky as a kid, but I've been thin. I've been thin my whole life, and but I'd still I'd restrict my eating just because I'd see other people do it. I'd watch fitness YouTubers, and I'd see them constantly talk about calories and macros and things, and I felt like, well, okay, they do it, and I should do it too. I didn't take into any consideration to the fact that I'm stick thin, and I shouldn't be doing that when I'm working out, but that's what I did, and I didn't even have motivations to become buff. I remember I wanted to look like Travis Bickle, and mind you, Travis Bickle and Taxi Driver, Robert De Niro, Taxi Driver, it's much more buff than I am, if that gives you any idea of how thin I am. I kind of wanted to look like that, I remember I joked that I wanted to look like a monster with no fat on my body and just all muscle, and that's how I wanted to look. But really, I did have the intentions to get big. But the thing is, as this sort of went on, and I'd work out, and I'd cut calories, and I'd really watch what I ate and stuff like this, it just became, I don't know, I really started to like the way that I looked. I was as skinny as I'd ever been, but rather than me being flabby, which I always hated, ever since I was a kid, I hated walking around and feeling myself like jiggle, or I hate sometimes when I'm sitting, I'm just conscious of my fat, these pockets of fat in my body. It's sort of like a Sardarin, nausea, I'd have this feeling, and so finally that was gone, and for me, all these changes, it coincided with, through the entirety of senior year and junior year, a lot more female attention than I'd ever gotten in my life for some reason. There was actually a point in senior year where there was 4 different girls who wanted to go to the dance with me, and it was right before quarantine. I remember when quarantine happened, I was like, oh yes, finally I don't even have to, I don't have to deal with the situation anymore, because I'm not bashful around women. I've never been a bashful person. I'd say I'm very gregarious and I'm very naturally affable. But I don't know. Something about attention from women tends to make me uncomfortable. And that, for me, that was a very stressful experience in my whole life. Anytime a woman has liked me, it's often been a very stressful experience for me because I feel a lot of obligation to not hurt any feelings. But this the increased attention and these changes in my bodies, it sort of created this idea in my mind that they liked me because I looked the way that I do, very thin, dainty, and it didn't help that my entire life, my entire adolescent life, especially at this point, and ever since I became a teenager, I got a lot more female attention. But like I said, especially in junior and senior year, I'm not a particularly attractive man, but I think the reason that I got all this attention, which is evident by, just the way I look and the way that girls talk about me, is because they think I'm like dainty and cute and small and skinny, and that's what they'd always compliment me on. And ever since adolescence, the majority of my friends have often been women as well. And I'd always get complimented about being thin or how skinny I was, or how and girls would never compliment me, call me handsome or hot or anything. Or, they'd always say I'm cute or or pretty or things like this, and it really made this association in my head that this attention I was getting that made me feel good, was reliant on me looking a certain way. And I'm not gonna blame it on this point in my life because to be honest, although I hadn't struggled much with disordered eating prior to senior year and this year of my life, as a kid, I often had a lot of issues with body image, and I remember I'd always wanted to look really thin. I'd see like, for me, it was seeing like white boys like on Disney Channel, or like white boys in the commercials and how skinny they were and how they had bird chests and they looked like twigs, and I didn't, and I wanted to look exactly like them, and I look like them now, but as a kid, that really got to me. I remember once I was at my cousin's house for a family gathering when I was a kid, and one of my cousins called me fat, and I must have been really young, maybe like 5 or 6 or something, and I remember just laying on the floor crying, like bawling, like screaming that I'm not fat, or and it's a very funny scene, it's a very funny anecdote, but at the same time, I think it was genuinely upsetting for me. And something like that would probably be upsetting to me now, and and so although my problems with eating, my exacerbated problems with eating in the past while, and not to trigger anybody, but I'd restrict and I'd binge and things like this, and I'd try to purge and stuff. I think although it came from a place very typical of men, and the practical sense in which it manifested, latently, my eating disorder seems to be a lot different from men, because I don't know, the way that everybody talks about eating disorders for men is wanting to look like buff or muscular or something, but I never wanted to look that way. Women never complimented me on it, and I'm sorry, somebody's mowing the lawn, Jesus Christ, but yeah, women never complimented me on it, and I never expected to, I never felt the need to look that way. And so I wanted to be thin, and that's what I wanted. But it seems like really no other men I've met in my life or that I've read about ever in my life seem to feel that same way that I do. And that really sucks. I just don't, and it makes me feel just very isolated and alone. That I seem to struggle with it from a very feminine perspective. And, obviously I'm not a woman. And another one of these problems is that, I did say that female attention. By the way, there's some lag in this video because at this point in the night my laptop was dying sometimes. And my laptop starts dying and my game lags. But another thing is that I did say that female attention would make me uncomfortable. And For me, this tended to manifest maybe around the age of 16. I mean, it always did, but it really worsened maybe around that age. Um, and for me, it came with various experiences in adolescence where, the youngest of which was when I was 12 and was some 15-year-old girl, and just receiving sexual advances from women that like girls that like me that I wasn't ready for yet, and that sort of lingering discomfort and feeling I don't know, just dirty, or just I don't know, just that feeling lingered on my entire adolescence. Right, like I said, it first happened when I was 12 and some 15-year-old girl, and then happened to me again when I was 14, and it felt like it just kept happening, and I just developed such a discomfort around sexuality that I really wanted nothing to do with it, and somehow it's gotten worse. I've recently gotten out of a somewhat serious relationship, and in it I lost my virginity, and although it was something I didn't feel ashamed about or bad at the time, or and all the times afterwards that I did the act, it wasn't something that ever brought about any discomfort. But now, after the fact, now that I'm out of it, out of the relationship, it's something where when I think about it, I wince, or I I feel sick. I hate the feeling, and I feel an immense feeling of regret about my virginity, and again, this is a feeling that I don't really see that a lot of men share, and it's just a very difficult thing for me to sort of reconcile that a lot of the problems that I seem to have in my life are you always hear this thing that you're not alone, but a lot of the problems that I feel like I struggle with in my life feels like I'm actually alone in them, like I am seriously alone, or at least that I have camaraderie, but it's not even camaraderie. Is camaraderie, does that imply a strictly male population? I'm not sure. I have people to relate to, but none of them are men, and not to say that I don't get some solace and some comfort from speaking to women that sort of struggle with the same feelings that I do, related to body image and eating disorders and disgust and reservations about sex and things like this. But it still makes me feel acutely alone, or and sometimes it makes me feel even more that I'm a sore thumb, and that I shouldn't really be having these problems because I'm a man, and like I said, I mean, I have this thought recently where I wish I was a virgin, I think about sex sometimes, and it disgusts me, and it doesn't matter what person I imagine it with, or what situation, or what circumstance, or any of that, it doesn't, not a woman, not a man, not an attractive woman, not an attractive man, nothing. It just genuinely repulses me for some reason, and I have really no idea why. I don't know that the incidences that I've had in my adolescence related to discomfort around sexuality, I don't know that if they were really that impactful that for me to have these feelings now, but I do, and they're hard for me to reconcile, and like I said, it's a very odd thing for me, and it's funny, oh, and I forgot to mention, I had another one of these experiences of a girl being very haughty and sexual around me when I wasn't really ready for it. Also at the age of 17, in my senior year again, with this 19-year-old girl, and it also made me very uncomfortable. But it's funny, around that time in senior year, I'd listen to Pinkerton constantly, the Weezer's album Pinkerton, and although I'd never had sex at the time, and I certainly wasn't some world famous rock star, I really could relate to the prevailing theme on the album of sort of receiving a lot of attention, but none of it being really attention that you wanted. And again, I feel like this is an acutely female problem sometimes. I just feel so isolated because my whole life the men I talked to, their problem was that they would get any attention at all, you know. And now it felt like I was just constantly getting attention, and none of it was anything that I wanted, you know. And and I found a lot of solace in that record, you know, and songs of like Tired of Sex. I think Tired of Sex is one of my top listened songs of the past year, on Last FM at least. And uh, you know, and like I said, even though I hadn't done the act at the time, you know, I'd jam out to it and I'd sing along to it. I felt as if I really was tired of it, you know, because in my mind, even though I hadn't done it, I was tired of it. I was already tired of it, you know. Um, and still, even though I've only done it with one person, and it hasn't been that many times. I mean, it's been several, you know. In a relationship, you do it a lot, but I feel tired of it now, you know. And and yeah, that's, you know, and listen to that album, and I'd feel so comforted, you know. I wish I could talk to Rivers Cuomo and tell him that I know what he feels, and I guess if I ever became a world famous rock star, I'd know the exact feeling. So yeah, I doubt really anybody's gonna watch these videos outside of maybe some of my friends. But if any of you sort of relate to any of the things I'm talking about here, I hope you know that you're not the only one, and that if you do relate with these problems, about that if you want somebody to talk about it with, I'd certainly appreciate it. But yes, you know, I've conquered a lot of my problems over eating. Um, Lately I've been in a much better place. I still have a lot of disordered thoughts, so don't get me wrong, but um, I seem to have settled again on this sort of feeling of sort of disgust and discomfort around dating and sex and everything. And ever since I've gotten out of my relationship, I've been talking to a lot of girls again, and I hate it. It feels so cynical and and transactionary, and you know, people would always use the word, people always use the word the game, right? Or people always refer to dating as a game, and now more than ever I feel that I really understand it, because there's this, I don't know, you know, I mean, there's this sort of mutual understanding that there's something expected, I guess, you know. um, and it just feels sick to talk to people that I don't know well, just to try and suss out if there's somebody that I could have a genuine relationship with. You know, it feels sick. You know, it feels like I'm using someone, and there's this expectation that at any moment we could get sick of each other and just stop talking to each other, and that's the way that it is. You know, that hearts are gonna get broken, feelings are gonna get hurt, and then that's just the way that it is, and I hate it. And I was talking to people for a while there, but I deleted my apps that I would use to meet people, because I'm just tired of it, and I hate that feeling, you know. And I hated that, and I hated that in senior year especially too, you know, just sort of discovering what dating is really like, and this feeling that everybody does it and that's normal for everybody else, but for me it brings me such great anguish, you know, this feeling that I'm hurting people, that I'm going to be hurt, that there's deception and treachery inherent in it, you know. I hated it. And for a moment there, I felt like I had something genuine in my relationship, and now it sort of feels dirty and sullied in its own way as well, you know. There are moments that stick out, you know, as sanctified to me or as pure, but given everything that has been done and everything that has been said, and the fact that it is over now, it feels just very dirty now. I almost want to become a celibate now, you know. And again, referring back to the feelings of sort of relating to a lot of feminine struggles, and how funny that I'm talking about this now as I'm tipping these strippers. But relating back to that, I feel this sort of need to sort of become celibate, you know, or just stop eating, or just get away from everything, you know, and just sort of, yeah, like I said, just become celibate, or become a celibate, holy anorexic, so to speak. Become like a Christian saint, you know, or a Christian nun, you know what I mean, and just, you know, fast and vow to celibacy and just rescind from this dirty world. You know, I love life and I love this earth and I love everything in it, but I'm starting to again to struggle with these feelings where I want to shut everything out because everything feels so dirty and inherently wrong. and yeah, and I hope that there's other men that feel like this. You know, I really hope that there is. But that's what I have to say on that, and there's a bit more left of this level. There's about 2 minutes. I'm sorry that I took so long. I'm sorry I've been talking so long. This is a long level. And I don't think this is actually even a long level. I think I'm just bad at the game. As you see, I can't even figure out where to go at this point. But then I sort of figure out that I have to go up there. I keep on taking the strippers because it's funny. It's very funny, and it's something I love about this game. It's so just hilariously, I don't know. It's a real kick, and I really love it. And I'd love to do more of these videos, but if I don't, well, I'm sorry. I don't follow through always on a lot of things. But I finally found an easy way to make these things. The problem is, I really wouldn't know the software to use to do these before, but lately I'm using OBS, and that's sort of what's been doing it for me. And yeah, and hopefully I don't have any more audio problems. Maybe I can put in the game audio at some point, but you know, for the time being, I'll just continue to put in music, and you can hear my lovely adolescent voice. If I lisp sometimes, sometimes it's because I have braces. And I have like elastic bands and everything too. And watch, I'm about to get trapped by the fucking police here, man. Oh man, I'm gonna get fucked. The pigs are the hardest enemy in this fucking game, just like in real life, man. Can't go up against the fucking man, you know, he's a fucking empire. Here I go, here I go. I kill him. I think that emancipation is near. Dictatorship of the proletariat is in sight, and then no, I'm fucked. I'm fucked by the fascist capitalist pigs. Yep, red light district, 34 minutes. How embarrassing. Well, thanks for listening. And that's all. Bye bye.